One of my all-time favorite stories is the story of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, one of the great Hasidic leaders of 18th century Europe. And on one occasion, his wife came running into the house crying, "Mendel, Mendel, there's a man outside. He says Mashiach is coming. He says the Messiah is here." The rabbi heard this news. He jumped up with excitement. He ran to the window, stuck his head outside the window, sniffed the air, and then he said, "Nah, it's Meshuggah, some nutcase." And he went back to his studies. Very strange story, but let's explain what happened. The sages tell us that when the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, the world became diminished. Just like there was a spiritual diminishment of the world, there is a physical diminishment. Colors weren't as bright. Music didn't sound as beautiful. Fruit didn't taste as sweet. The world became smaller, lesser place. And when the Messiah arrives, the world will be restored to that same level as the spiritual level of the world is brought back to where it should be. The physical intensity of the world will respond in proportion. And so a world in which there's a Messiah is not similar to a world without a Messiah. Well, what's the first way to detect the difference? Well, we have five senses, but of those five senses, scent is the most spiritual of them all. God breathed a soul into man. When Noah brought his offerings, it says that God smelt the pleasant fragrance. Of course, that's anthropomorphic. God doesn't have olfactory nerves the way we do, but there was something about that sense. The word in Hebrew for fragrance, reach, is the same root as the word for spirituality, ruach. And so there's something intangible, there's something very powerful about fragrance. And that will be the early detection sign of a world in which the Messianic age has begun. It can first be discerned through scent. And so the Rebbe ran to the window, smelled. What does the world smell like? Does it smell different or does it smell the same? Well, the world smelt the same. Obviously, the Messiah had not come. He went back to his studies. 100 years later, another rabbi, I believe was a descendant of his, the Rabbi Yisrael of Ruzhin, he asked a very simple question. He said, why did the rabbi have to run to the window and smell the outside air? Why didn't he just smell the air in his house? And he says a phenomenal reason why. He said that inside the Rebbe's house, it already smelt like a world of the Messiah. Why? Because the Rebbe had such an expectation that the Messiah was coming. It was not just something that he philosophically or intellectually knew. It was something that he believed with every fiber of his being. And more than that, it was something that every action he took, every thought he had, every word he said was designed to bring the Messiah closer. And when we are not just waiting for something to happen or waiting for something to arrive, but we are actively working to bring it about, we are connected to that result that we're waiting for with such intensity that in some way it's as if we're already there. And so the fragrance inside the rabbi's house already smelled like a world of the Messiah. He had to go outside and what's the rest of the world smell like? And the lesson for us is extremely powerful. It doesn't mean that we ignore the problems of everyday life. It doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge that there are problems, there are difficulties, there are challenges, there are things that aren't the way they're supposed to. It doesn't mean walking around with rose-colored glasses and a Pollyanna view of the world. It means recognizing the purpose that defines our existence and recognizing the power that each one of us has to improve the world, to move the world in the right direction, and to contribute to the world arriving at its ultimate destiny when mankind perfects itself and returns to the paradise that the first man and woman knew in the Garden of Eden, that's what it will mean to bring about the Messianic era. And that's what it means to live a life in anticipation of the better world, the ultimately perfect world that we have the power to bring into existence.